Hello there. Today I'm taking a look at a Syrah from the Hawke's Bay. This is Ashridge's Premium Syrah from 2019, and this is from the Bridge Peah Triangle. Now, I have looked at a number of Bridge Peah Triangle Syrahs previously, as the team here are actually in the middle of making a Syrah from fruit that we bought from the Bridge Peah Triangle. And I have reviewed Ashridge's Reserve Syrah before, but at the same time they sent us this wine to look at, so I thought I'd taste it. It was very kind of them to send it. Now, Ashridge are a relatively new small producer in Hawke's Bay. In 2000, somebody called Chris Willcock, who was a New Zealander, a banker, but working overseas, purchased a 9-hectare peach orchard, as it was then, right in the heart of the Bridge Peah Triangle. In fact, it wasn't until 2005 that he got round to planting vines there. He was still working abroad in banking. And it wasn't until 2007 that he retired from his career in banking and came back to New Zealand to grow grapes. Chris works with a winemaker called Lauren Swift, and they also manage for a neighbour a further 5 hectares of vines. So in total there are 14 hectares of vineyard here. They have Chardonnay and Syrah planted. And the clones of Syrah that they've used really rather point to quite a French approach. There are 2 clones that they've planted in, I believe, 50-50 proportions. One of them a clone called Chave, so named after eminent Hermitage producer and presumably coming from clonal material from Chave's vineyards. And the other simply called MS, and I would understand MS to mean Massal Selection. Now, normally you'd create a Massal Selection from within your own vineyard, because you pick those vines that perform best, you mark them during the season, then during the winter you take budwood from them to propagate. But actually, as they bought a clone, I'm assuming this is somebody else's Massal Selection that's simply been named as a Massal Selection. Also pointing towards a slightly particular style is the fact that Lauren has spent quite a bit of time working in the Rhone Valley in France. She worked for somebody called Stephane Ogier, and the Ogier family are well known in Hermitage as high quality producers, and I think this experience has really rather marked the style of the winemaking that goes on at Ashridge, resulting in a winemaking style that's perhaps not as focused on purity of fruit character as is the case with most New Zealand winemakers. I believe the vineyards are in conversion to organics, but I can't see any note suggesting that this is certified as organic, so possibly the conversion is still going ahead in 2019. My understanding is the fruit is hand-picked, and then the notes are a little vague, but they describe the fact that once picked, the fruit's divided into 5 different lots, and each is vinified separately, and in fact is kept separate for the start of aging. And differences are that some is fermented in open-top fermenters. Evidently, some of the batches were given much longer time on skins than is normal. Up to 8 weeks is mentioned, and that's a very long time indeed, so that you're going to extract all the colour and flavour you can in that period. And in fact, the tannins will start to polymerise and form larger molecules, and some of them may drop out. So the tannins, rather than increase, may actually start to reduce again during that, at the end of that 8-week period. And evidently the different lots had different proportions of stems. I'm not sure whether they were retained or whether they were added back into the ferment. So certainly I should imagine we will see some indication of the flavour of those stems in the ferment there. And yes, for the first 8 months of aging in barrel, I have no idea whether, I'm assuming French oak, I don't know how much, what proportion would be new, if any. At the price point of this wine, probably not a large amount. So yes, the 5 separate lots were kept separate until the end of this 8-month period. They were then blended, and the wine spent a further 6 months in barrel prior to its bottling and release. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we, and see what we make of it. I've been looking at some Australian Shirazes recently, and this is nowhere near as deep. I can easily see the stem of the glass through the wine there. So yeah, this is a dark, medium ruby red. So swirling it, let's see what we make of the aromas, shall we? Gosh, those aromas are really quite particular. There's a spiciness and a green note to them that is making me think of the stems. almost a sort of a sappy touch, and then behind that there's a pepperiness. There's some quite fresh red plum fruit, and there are some slightly savoury notes, savoury and spicy. It's certainly an interesting nose. So let's have a taste, shall we? On the palate, that's medium to full-bodied. It's a very fine, smooth tannin, almost with a slightly chalky nature. There's a meatiness, quite a savoury, spicy note. I have remarked on the previous wine that I tried from Ashridge that I found it quite reduced. I suspect there's a little bit of reduction here, but actually the savoury, old world style and complexity here, I think, is at a better place. It's more developed and it's working better because the savoury, spicy notes are giving way to a smooth, plummy fruit at the finish, and then there's a spiciness and a meatiness on the end there, where there's a little bit of grip. The structure's not particularly astringent, but actually the medium weight of tannins is lasting quite nicely. The finish has quite a roundness. Now this only has 12.5% alcohol. There's not a particularly hot finish, although there is this sort of spicy note, a slight pepperiness. Maybe there's a slightly green touch to it, but actually it's not unpleasantly so. It's not sappy. I think I've been slightly surprised by this wine. It is really quite old world in its style. Now, I get the impression that this is one of the first vintages of this wine that may have been produced, so we don't actually have any critic scores for it at the moment. If I had to, I would be marking this somewhere in the region of 88, 89. At the same time, it has a very particular style, and I can imagine that somebody who loved its sort of old world charm, as it were, might actually feel they wanted to mark it higher than that. But I certainly think that this is a wine with some interest. I think it has the concentration and complexity to gain a little with 2 or 3 years in age in bottle. I'm still not absolutely sure that I'm enjoying the wine, but I am actually quite intrigued by it, and it's the sort of thing I'd be interested to come back to in a few years and see how it's developed. I actually think it would pair very well with savoury dishes. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, do please press the like button. If you know anybody who you think might like to watch the video, do please forward it to them. If you have any comments yourself, please feel free to pop them in the comments box below. We'd love to hear what you think about the wines we're looking at, the tastings we're doing, or anything else that relates to that. I will leave a link in the notes to the page for this vintage of this wine on our website, and that way you can go to Wine Searcher and you can find out more about the wine. You can see what its price is, where it's available, and any other details that we have there. So yes, thank you again for joining us, and I do hope you'll manage to find some time in the very near future to come and watch another video with us. Thanks again. Bye now.